Although I said I'd never do a commission again, this was a special exception. Okay, let's get started. Hello and welcome. This is Betty with Betty Franks Art. Excited to have you here with me as I start creating on this new 48 by 48 in my new studio, is what I meant to say. So new that I still didn't have screws up in the studs, which later I discovered there really are no studs in this particular building. They have like some kind of metal as studs. So it was a little bit more difficult to try to get that set up. But regardless, I got started here working on this little bench so that I could have the artwork up a little bit higher for me. Now, this is a commissioned piece. And yes, I know I said I wasn't going to be doing commissions anymore, and I actually did stop doing commissions. However, when it comes to family, sometimes commissions are an exception. And in this case, I certainly did make an exception. I had told my cousin that yes, I would be happy to make her a custom piece when they moved to Austin, Texas, and that was several years ago before I decided to not do commissions anymore. So I kept my word and I created this piece for them. So, as I mentioned, this is a 48 by 48. And what I am going to be doing is creating a piece that is going to go into their family room or main room of the house, which is connected to the kitchen. It's kind of an open house concept. And so they sent me pictures of their room, their furnishings, the colors in their room, the wall that it was going to be placed on. And also, I had them pick out one or two of my previous pieces of art that they really connected with so that I can use that as an inspiration. And so later on, you'll see I end up taping that up on the wall because I ended up getting a print of it, just a local print. Costco doesn't do those anymore. So I think I got it like at, oh, I don't know, CVS or something like that. So got a print done and just used that as my inspiration. So I'll show that to you in a little bit. It's a piece that I created several years ago, a little bit before I actually started creating in the style that I'm creating in now. So working on creating in a style that I used to do became a bit of a challenge for me. But also the whole fact that it's a commission is a challenge for me. There is a video that I put together, and I'm going to link that for you here that will explain to you why I stopped doing commissions. But also, if you're an artist, I go into detail about how to do commissions. So you get a little bit of both. Actually, you get more of all the things that you should do when you're doing a commission. And then I briefly talk about why I stopped doing commissions. Here, I've already started to multitask immediately, which is I'm trying to dry all of the black paint that I put on there, and then I'm kind of trying to move forward with adding some other colors right away. Now, the other thing that's different about this piece that is not like my usual pieces is that the colors are going to be neutral instead of my what I call my bright happy colors. So that became a challenge for me as well. And here I'm trying to use up that color that's on there right now. It's kind of an odd color. It's a it came out of a tube. I'm trying to remember. I think it might be a Liquitex out of the tube, and it's got a little bit of a shimmer to it. And I want to use it up because the most wasted paint is the paint that's left in the tube and dries up and you can't even use it. So I am trying to use it up by just spreading it out on this first layer because my first layers are always all about putting down paint, putting down marks, getting something on there to get going. Just like my very first marks with pencils and crayons was my way of connecting with the canvas and getting something down on it so that I can move to my next step in my process. As you can see by working here on this little, whatever I want to call this, I don't even know what to call it, stool, we'll call it a stool. It's much harder than having it up on the wall. And I'm using up that black that kind of ended up on the stool because I had sprayed it down a little bit with some water. And we know that if you add some black to yellow, and this yellow in particular is not one of my favorite yellows, it's a really bright, in your face type of yellow. So it works great when I mix it with black or blue to create a green color. Not all colors that I use are my favorite out of the jar. I often like to mix them, well, almost always like to mix it with another color. And the colors that I'm using here, the paints that I'm using, for the most part, other than those tubes I'm trying to get rid of, for the most part is Nova Color paints, which I absolutely love. And I'm excited to say that I have partnered up with them to create Betty's Bundle, which is a group of 15 paints in 4-ounce jars. And it's a great starter set if you don't know what colors to pick, because I know when you go to their website, it can be a little overwhelming because there are so many fantastic colors to choose from. It's like, well, where do I start? So I've put together this bundle of 15 of my go-to colors that I use on a regular basis. And I think that you are going to enjoy using them as well. There's a lot of bright, happy colors in there, along with a couple of slightly neutral colors. And I've got titanium white in there as well as black. So I'm going to leave a link down below for you under the show notes, or just leave me a message here in the comment section if you can't find my link, and I will be happy to send that to you. I'm just moving right along here and putting down some grays now, filling in. And I'm trying to, as I'm working through this, I'm thinking in my head, okay, gotta work on neutral colors, no bright, happy colors for this one. Although I do add some color to it later, overall it ends up being pretty neutral, just like as you saw at the very beginning, that photo of me with the artwork. So this piece ends up going to Austin, Texas. I was teaching a workshop in Austin at the beginning of May. This recording right now is towards the end of June 2022. And so I did a workshop a month and a half ago. And what I did was I created this piece so that I could remove it from the stretcher bars, roll it up, take it on the flight with me, unroll it because I was staying with my cousins, and unroll it when I'm there. And I had her purchase a 48 by 48 as well. And so when I got there, I removed it from the stretchers, and then I restretched this one onto those stretcher bars. That was the most cost-effective and efficient way to do this. And so I'll be showing you a little bit about that. Later, you'll see me removing them from the stretcher bars. But I wanted to talk about it now because oftentimes by the time I get to the end of the video, I forget that I want to share that part with you. So I'm sharing early, and I will talk a little bit more about it when we get to that part of the video. Here I am on another day. I believe it's another day. Again, I tend to wear the same uniform in my studio. I change out of my street clothes and put on my painting clothes, so sometimes it's hard for me to tell if it's the same day. If I really pay attention, I can check my earrings. Usually those change out daily. What I did here was, since it was completely dry, I treated it like I was starting all over, and I put down a whole bunch of marks again. And here I am squeezing right out of that, and I believe it was a Liquitex tube of this kind of a dark reddish color with a little bit of sheen to it or glitter to it. Not sure how to describe it. But it doesn't show up very much in the end. A little bit peeks through. That's a great way to, if you paint like I do in layers, that's a great way to get rid of your paints that you don't use as often. What I've got over on that other side is my rack of paints, and I'm going over there to bring paints out. Again, this is my first large painting here in the studio, and my table is pretty clean. And what I did was I ended up purchasing an acrylic plastic, and I attached it. You can kind of see the yellow tape along the edges there. I attached it to the top of my table that already had 6 mil plastic on it because I thought this was going to be a really great idea where I could put down paint on there, and then when it dried, I could just use like a scraper to scrape it off. Hmm. Well, guess what, folks? That doesn't work like that. And I don't know if maybe it's the Nova Color paints that doesn't work that way because I've seen other artists do this, but I'm wondering if they used a glass top because I used an acrylic top, maybe it didn't work. And the acrylic, believe it or not, is kind of porous. And so what I discovered also is when I put my paints on it, they didn't glide around easily. So when I mix my paints, like I like to do on my palette, I like to mix my paints. I had a really hard time mixing my paints. It was just really dragging. And so that kind of threw me off a bit. It didn't feel like my usual comfortable mixing process. Not only am I in a new studio, but I've got some new things going on around me. Oh, and I guess I should point out that now I am up on the wall. I had the maintenance folks come in and put screws in the walls where they believed the metal studs were, if that makes sense. So I had them do that, but honestly, I think they missed on one of them because now it's like a couple of months later and one of those screws is sagging, and that tells me that it's not attached to anything solid on the back end. I'm going to have to figure out how to address that. I'm moving right along here, adding colors, not thinking too much about the final outcome just yet, but those yellow quote unquote flowers going across the upper quarter, those do end up being prominent at the end, although I do change the color of those. So thinking a little bit about composition here, but not a ton just yet. And if you see my eyes over to looking over to the left, that's because the inspiration piece is over there, and I end up moving it to my right side because it's easier to look at when it's over there. So you'll see me peeking over that way on occasion. And again, it was used only as an inspiration. This piece looks nothing like the inspiration piece, but it helped guide me in a sense. Now, there's a reason I don't do commissions anymore, and as I mentioned, it's in the video that I linked earlier. However, let me just briefly talk about why that is. The main reason is me. It's not you, it's me. And the reason I say that is I know who I am, and I am a people pleaser. I want to make people happy at any cost to me. And so that's what I put into all of my paintings. I get so stressed out and so worried and so like afraid that the person that's going to receive this painting isn't going to like it and that's just going to crush me. And so I know this about me, and it took me years to figure that out. Although I knew I was a people pleaser, but I didn't know just how much it affected my ability to create a custom piece of artwork. I'm so focused on making sure that it's going to be exactly what that person wants that it kind of stifles my ability to flow with the painting and create as I naturally create. Being an intuitive painter, I don't plan out anything. I don't like to follow anything. I don't like to expect a certain outcome. And so that's the challenge of trying to stay free, stay intuitive here, and keep on creating in a way that is going to allow me to create a painting that is fantastic. All right, so up on the wall, you can see I finally moved it over, and that piece of paper underneath it are the colors that they want. So on there, I think it says grays, blues, maroons, I think was on there, and mustard yellows. So those were the kind of the colors I was going to be focusing on as I got closer to the end, but also adding them along the way as well. It's so funny watching me because I just look so lost here. I'm walking back and forth, and normally I don't have that. And I seem to be talking to somebody too. So honestly, I don't remember if somebody was in the studio with me. May have been my daughter. I don't know. Interesting. Unless I've got an earbud in and I'm talking to somebody on the phone. And we can already see here, these are not my usual colors, a lot of neutrals happening. But what's interesting is in the end, I really end up falling in love with this piece, even though it's not my usual, and maybe because it wasn't my usual style, maybe because it really pushed me outside my comfort zone and got me to focus on the neutrals and how I can create a painting just using neutrals. And this painting's got quite a few layers and a lot of interest in some areas that I absolutely love, like the lower middle section's got a lot of interesting stuff going on at the very end. And I've got some close-up video for you when we get there. It's interesting how, some of the ones that truly challenge you can end up being your favorites. See here, I'm already doing thinking, and typically when I create on my own for my own purposes, there isn't a whole lot of thinking at this stage. And so you'll see me hesitating a lot because, again, going back to, I'm trying to think of, what is it that they want? What can I do to make them happy, make them, really fall in love with this piece? And that's what's constantly going through my head when I'm creating a commission piece. Now here I just wet it down a little bit just so I can get that paint to move around. As I mentioned, the palette that I'm working on, it was just really not easy to get paint to move around, and I felt like I wasn't getting enough on my brush. However, I must say I do love my new studio space, and I am finally at a place where I am so much more comfortable than when I, created this first piece, and I'm still don't have my paints in the right place, don't have the right palette. I do end up removing that plastic acrylic sheet that I purchased and just set it aside and went back to just using my 6 mil plastic. I used to use 4 mil, but for this studio, for the walls and for my palette there, I'm using 6 mil and I'm much happier with it. It's much thicker and I feel like it's going to last even longer than my 4 mil that I had in my other studio. I'm liking these areas that I'm quieting down and well, I always love drips too. Not, I don't think too many of those drips end up showing up at the very end. So here, twirling my paintbrush, already thinking, looking at the other painting, looking back at this painting, trying to figure out where do I go from here. Challenging every step of the way. If you've been following me for a while, thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here and watching my videos. If you're new, I would encourage you to subscribe and to hit that notification bell so that you're notified of my future videos. I try to release videos every other week on a Friday typically, and by hitting that notification bell, you'll be notified when I have another one out. Okay, looks like I'm back another day. I am coming in with marks again. I'm not close to that finish line yet, and so I'd like to come in and just put down marks. Now, when I do this for this kind of a painting, I am trying to pick marks that are neutral, that are going to work with that painting. So I probably used like a pencil, maybe some colored pencils that were maybe in the similar colors to what I already have going on. I don't want to come in with like a bold pink or a bright green or anything like that for a painting with neutrals in it. I would do that in my other paintings. All right, I've got hand lotion. If you don't know the trick about hand lotion, put some hand lotion on, any hand lotion. I use the dollar store hand lotion, and it just creates a bit of a barrier for your skin so that when you go to wash your hands, it comes off much easier. I was checking that list up there again, making sure that I am following the colors that they're looking for. That's a gray that I put up on the wall there, just to see if it was going to be the kind of gray I want. What I found in one of my other videos that I did was I was putting down gray on the painting and it just didn't look gray. And so I kept putting marks of it on my plastic wall so that I can see, did I really create gray? Because it doesn't look gray at all. And it's interesting because when you put down a color, it is influenced by the colors around it. And so every time I kept putting down gray, it wasn't working with the other colors around it, and so I had to adjust it a bit to make it more of a gray. I absolutely love putting color over color over color because it creates so much depth and interest to a piece. And that's what I'm doing in that lower left-hand corner, is just adding another layer of paint, another color of paint. If you're feeling stuck in your paintings and you don't know what to do next, after you've put down those initial colors, try going back in and doing the opposite color for each area that you already put down a color. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you put down red in an area, now go back in and put down a blue or a green on top of it and see how that feels. So do kind of the opposite for all of the colors that you put down, and you'll start building up some really interesting texture and interest. And what I encourage you to do is when you put down that second layer, don't entirely cover up the first layer. You want some of that peeking through. So be careful not to just, over overload your brush with paint and cover the whole thing. If you're interested in taking an online workshop with me, I have a recorded online workshop that is 2 hours long, and I am working on 18 by 24-inch paper. And I walk you through the process. We also do some exercises at the beginning, and it is available to you indefinitely for as long as you want to have access to it. Access is super easy because it's right on YouTube with a private link. So you don't have to sign up for anything to be able to watch it. Now here I'm coming in. Oh, and I should say, let me put a link right here. Actually, I'm going to put it in the notes below. I'm going to put in the notes below the link to it so that you can check that out and read up all about it and how to purchase it. So and again, if you can't find it below, just leave me a comment and I will be happy to send you that link. Also, let me know below. I'm really interested for the folks who follow my art. And I know many of you have expressed how much you love my brighter colored pieces. How many of you create in bright colors or neutral colors? Leave me a comment below and let me know. Are you creating most of your art in neutral colors, or do you love those really bright, happy colors? Would love to find that out. Here I am thinking, overthinking. I really call this overthinking. Again, if I was just creating this for myself, I would just be plowing forward and not overthinking it. I'm laughing because my head tilts back and forth. It's like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of shaking my head, unsure, unsure, unsure. The one thing that I'm super happy about sitting here and doing this voiceover and talking about this is that my cousins, Joy and Mike, absolutely fell in love with it. They love having it in their home, and I have to tell you, that makes my heart so, so happy. When they told me, when I sent them a photo, which it was like 95% done, and they said it was perfect the way it was, I almost broke down and cried because it was such a relief to know that I hit it on the target, that I got what they were looking for, and that they were so happy with it. But of course, and I'll show you this later, of course, I wasn't entirely happy with it. I wanted to do a little bit more to it. So I did, and I'll talk about that a little bit later when we get there. Here I'm introducing the burgundy color that they wanted to have in the painting as well. And I have to tell you, man, burgundy is not one of my favorite colors. I much prefer red over burgundy. And I actually had to like get on my phone and Google burgundy so I can see what that color looked like because I wanted to be really sure that I was hitting the right, you know, shade of reds so that it was the right burgundy, I guess. Now up here, I decided I had way too much stuff going on and I wanted to cover up a lot of it, a little bit peeking through here and there, but I needed to quiet it down a bit. And most of my paintings start off really noisy, really crazy and wild, and sometimes it's even hard to see through all of that. So this quieting down of areas is really important to me. I don't do it in every single one of my paintings. A lot of them still have a lot of stuff going on, but in a way, they're still kind of soothing. They're not, I don't know what it is about it, but there's kind of a balance to it that allows it to not seem so hectic and crazy. However, some pieces still are a little bit that way, and I leave them on purpose because I'm happy with them, and there are other paintings that are much quieter. This is an example of a much quieter painting, but up close you get to see all these little nuggets of previous layers peeking through. I'm going to laugh at myself again because, man, I felt that. Watching myself, I felt what I was going through at the time. It's coming back to me. Kind of like giving birth, right, ladies? It's like, you look back and you remember all of it. The pain that you go through, but it's always so worth it in the end. Coming in with some lighter values here. Not sure if this was a different day or if I just took a little break. I was taking quite a few breaks from it. It was interesting when I was pulling this video together, how many short videos I had because I would turn the camera off, sit down, stare at it for a while, take a picture, look at it, try to decide where to go next. And it's slowly coming together. We are halfway through, so we're getting there. My inspiration comes from my love for fields of flowers and my love for flowers in general. So you will see in my paintings those represented in various ways, like, the circles here, the dark red ones, the burgundy ones, representing flowers. Sometimes I have stepping stones represented, and in this one, you can kind of see that representation in the lower left as it climbs upward in that really dark color. I think it's like a really dark blue. I've got other marks that I put in there that represent stems, or they could be grass blades, they could be branches in trees, it could be tree trunks. It's just a variety of different shapes that I see in nature that are in all of my paintings in one way or another. I've got some yellow going on there. And, well, looks like I came in with the pencil, make some marks. Oh no, that's a brush. Couldn't see it from this angle. Now, I eventually end up getting almost all my paints that I use on a regular basis over to my table. It is a 6-foot table, so the half that you can't see, later on, I end up putting all of my paints over there, and then they actually end up being all around the table because I find that as much as I like to move them out of the way, I like to have them close to me so that I can grab them easily. I have come to accept that that's the way I paint, and I'm going to have paint jars all around me all the time, and I'm constantly scooting them out of the way so I have more room on my palette. This is a really pretty, uh, what color is that? It's kind of it's got a tint of blue in it, and a little tint of green in it. And there I'm shaking my head going, well, that's not on the list, but I really like it. And not every color that was on their list, um, wait, I should say, every color that was on their list is in here. However, there are other colors in here as well, because it would be too difficult to create a painting with just those 4 colors. For me, it would be. I know for other folks that's a piece of cake, but I like introducing other colors too as accents or as just specks of them showing through here and there. And that kind of foam green, maybe it's more of a foam green, I really loved, but most of it didn't end up being in the final, if I remember correctly. It's one of those colors I mixed up, have no idea how I mixed it up, but loved it. My love for stepping stones is probably represented up in that upper right, those white marks that are the 3 that are coming down from the top. That's also my love for stepping stones. And I do love yellow. I do love the mustard yellow. Works well with this particular painting. If you're interested in my future workshops or my art on paper that I release only to the folks on my email list, I encourage you to sign up. I send out emails maybe twice a month, on occasion a little bit more if I've got like something to share with you guys about upcoming events or workshops, things like that. But for the most part, I don't send out too many emails. I would love to have you on my email list. Everyone on there gets first dibs about information. Like I said, my art on paper typically goes out to my email list first. And on occasion, where am I getting at with that? When I go to Croatia, all of my art on paper that comes back with me just goes to my email list. I was going to say on occasion it'll go out to my social media. However, lately in the past year or more, it's been selling out just to my email list, so I don't get a chance to post it anywhere else. Here I've decided I wanted to add some more flowers, and so I've come in and added more of them through here. I felt like they were a little bit too disconnected and not really showing enough of a presence on this particular piece. They were too spread apart. By adding a few more, it feels more like a grouping. And I like to do things in groupings. I'm not sure if you've seen that, noticed that in my paintings, but groups of 3, groups of 5, groups of more. Usually they're odd number groups. On occasion might be an even number. I like this green that I've got going, which I created using the mustard yellow and I think black and yellow. Got some drips running down. I especially love drips over a solid area like that. It really shows so much more than when it runs over areas that are really busy. I do like to paint all the sides of my paintings, so sometimes I got to get right down on my knees to get on that underside. I love when paintings wrap all the way around, and so when you're viewing it from the side, from an angle, you can see that it continues around the edges. Folks who don't want to use a floating frame can just, hang it up like this and enjoy it like this, or you can add a floating frame to it. My cousins, I encourage them to live with it without a floating frame and see if they like that. And then if they feel that it needs a floating frame, that's something that can easily be done later. Coming in with some lighter values, which I feel like we're really lacking here. And many times, more times than not, my lightest values come in at the very end of a painting. So we still have a little ways to go here, but we're definitely close to the end of it. Well, I shouldn't say that. We're not definitely close. We're definitely in the middle stages. There's a lot of fine tuning that happens from here on out with me thinking, thinking, thinking. All right, looks like I'm calling it a day. Putting my lids on all my jars. One thing that I did recently was I left out my rigger, which is like a script brush. I accidentally left it out, I think for several days. When I got back to the studio, I was like, I can't believe I left this out. Riggers, I love using riggers, whether I'm working large or small. So what I ended up doing was Murphy's oil soap. I got some Murphy's oil soap with just a little bit of water added to it and soaked it. And I had to soak it for several days. And then I needed to use my little scrub brush, that I use on my hands to get the paint off. I used the scrub brush to get all the paint out of it, and it was, well, I won't say it was like brand new, but I certainly rescued it and got all the paint out of there and was able to continue using it. So if you have any brushes, and if you're like me on occasion, forgetting that you've left a brush out, forgot to put it back in the water, and forgot to wash it, then soak it in Murphy's oil soap for, overnight. For sometimes I just leave them in there for days at a time. It's not going to harm your brush. If you've got a very soft brush, it may bend the bristles if you leave it, sitting in there for a long time. But certainly overnight or, a couple of days shouldn't do any damage to it. It's truly a lifesaver when it comes to saving brushes that I love. Now in that squirt bottle, there we go, that one, I have a titanium white. I use so much titanium white that I decided that I like putting it in the squirt bottle. But then after a while, that squirt bottle, the um, the tip of it started jamming up because I don't put the lid back on every time. And so it didn't really work out for me long term. Now, speaking of not working out, my stepping stones, they went out. But then I'm looking at that going, well, no, those marks aren't working because they're competing with my red flowers, and now I've got my white flowers up there. So I think I end up softening those out even more. Now I've got a light value going on up in that corner. I like to spread out my lighter values throughout the painting. And I'm bringing that one right down the sides, down this side, and then doing the wrapped around side as well. And I think I need to get up to the top. I'm not sure if I ended up doing the top or not. I like making sure that I take care of all my sides as I'm painting, because then at the end, if I missed an area, I need to try to recreate that color as close as possible. And that just is annoying because I don't always do a good job of doing that. I will tell you that this middle section that I'm working right now was the bane of my existence for this painting. I struggled with this section so much. I'm going to tell you there's probably 20 layers on that section because I kept going over it and over it and over it, trying to get it just right. It seems like there's always like one part of a painting that just really challenges me and pushes me to, to really work that area so that it works with the rest of the painting. And for this one, it was that middle section right there, to the point where I even signed the painting and called it done. And then I went back to that section one more time. So that's an example where I sprayed down an area that I wasn't super happy with. And then I'm coming in and just wiping back. I think I kept a few of those drips, but not many. Now I'm wondering if I actually end up keeping those 4 lighter colors right above where I'm working right now. I can't remember. And I think that lower corner there's way too much darkness or dark value in that lower corner, and I end up addressing that. It makes the painting feel very off balanced. Coming in with that burgundy color one more time. I do like to layer up my colors. And here I'm spreading out that burgundy just in a couple of more places because I like having it in a few places, not just in one place. Going back to my inspiration, so my fields of flowers, love for flowers. If you are still trying to figure out your inspiration, I would challenge you to start thinking about when you are out and about and something captures your eye or captures your heart, makes you really happy, start writing those things down or remembering those things. You're probably better off writing it down, whether in a journal or on your phone, or take a picture of it, of what is lighting you up, what is making your heart so happy. Because those are the things that you're going to end up finding is going to start coming out in your own paintings. Keeping track of those things is going to help you identify them and connect with them at a deeper level. So maybe you are into clouds. Maybe you're into clouds that are moving. Maybe you love water. Maybe you love the roar of the ocean and you're going to paint what that feels like to you. Maybe you love streams, the trickling streams of water, rivers. Um, Maybe you love uh, downtown areas, buildings, architecture. I certainly love those things, but they don't really come out in my paintings as much as flowers do, and the softness and the softer curves of flowers in nature, as opposed to architecture where there tends to be stronger edges, lines, things of that nature. So challenge is to really start paying attention to what makes you happy and what lights you up, and start figuring out how to introduce those things into your paintings if you're doing abstract art. So, for example, if you love buildings and you love lines, find a way to bring those into your artwork. Um, I just thought of a gentleman that I met many years ago at a art show that I did, and his artwork was all about he loves maps. And so his artwork was almost like, you know, looking at a map from 500 feet above. So there were lines in it, but they weren't super obvious lines. You had to come up close to see those lines. And there were like pinpoints of places of interest and lines coming from there. So it was really fascinating how he incorporated his love for maps into his paintings. Okay, so here I am addressing that bottom corner that was just way too much of a dark value. And I'm coming in trying to figure out, okay, how do I keep some of that dark value, but add some interest in there that's going to work with the rest of the painting? Keeping in mind that, I need to try to recreate some of those colors I had created in the painting. We're back another day, I think, or a few hours later, and I seem to be like, although I am moving fast, I did speed up this video. I seem to be moving even more so, like I'm really sure what I'm going to do now. And I took many pictures during this whole process and thought about it often. And here I am tackling that area right in the middle that was driving me crazy. If you want to slow down this video, you can certainly do that. If you are watching from your laptop or your computer, there is an icon or a gear icon under the video. If you click on that, you'll see an option to change the speed of the video. Now, I would recommend turning off the sound because I'm going to start slurring my words as you slow down the video. So you can turn on subtitles instead. And speaking of subtitles, if you are watching and English is not your primary language, you should be able to also click on the gear icon under the video and select languages and select your language. It should already be pre-populated there, and then you can turn on subtitles in your language, and that should help. I did speed up this video a little bit faster than some of my others because this whole process from start to end was extremely long, and I think it was running around 5 hours. So I had to speed it up a little bit faster than I normally do. But I think you can still, get the gist of what I'm doing with the option to slow it down if that's something that you'd like to do. At this point, we are getting close to the end, and I am coming in with just kind of those final figuring out what else I want to do before I send them a picture. One of the things that I truly love about this painting is because I went over areas so many times, the depth in this painting is just fabulous. I just fell in love with how much there was going how much was going on throughout this whole painting. As I mentioned before, it was worth the whole process of going through this and the struggle of going through it to create it. Here again, tackling that middle part. Cannot figure out what color I want in there and what that should look like. In my head, I was thinking, well, it's just too plain looking. I need something more interesting happening there. But yet, when I added something, and I think at some point I do add something in there to add a little bit more interest. And then I was like, nope, that's not working either. So went in with a little bit of a darker gray up there. Is it working? Is it not working? I think it ends up not really working. There we go. I'm already spraying down a little bit. If you're on social media, you can certainly follow me there as well. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Pinterest, not as much as I am here on YouTube. And lately, so several weeks ago, I decided to take a break from Instagram. And let me tell you, it has been so fantastic. Not stressing about what I'm going to post, whether to my feed or in my stories, not having to worry about anything that was going on Instagram and not being sucked into watching stuff that I really don't need to be watching. I think we've all gone down that rabbit hole where we just start watching one video and then we watch the next and the next and the next. I'm talking about reels, of course. And with reels, it's easy because, they're 15, 30-second reels and you're thinking, oh, no big deal. But man, sometimes I would be stuck on there for far too long, and then I'd have to remind myself that I've got other work that needs to get done. So it has been truly wonderful being off of Instagram for a while. Now, I did get back on there recently. I posted in stories about my workshop that I had here in San Jose a couple of weekends ago. And then I also posted in my feed about it, and I've done two other posts since then. So I'm not in there every single day, but I am going to continue sharing my art on there because I really believe it's a fantastic platform for sharing your art and reaching out to folks who want to learn more about you and learn about your art and purchase your art. It really is a great place for artists. However, I think everybody needs a break, and that's exactly where I was at. Okay, I kind of gave up on that middle section. You can kind of see circles that I put in there, which I ended up not being too crazy about. I think I'm coming in, yeah, I'm trying to mix colors so that I can cover up that area again in a similar value. When I said it was the bane of my existence, I was not exaggerating. I don't know what it was about this area that had me so stumped. The rest of the painting is done, which I'm super happy about. It was just this one area I had to keep coming back to. And I scratched into that wet a bit just to add a little bit of interest. Now, the other thing I could have done here is I could have come in and just broke this up into smaller sections with different colors, and that would have addressed it. But for some reason, I really liked that it stretched out and kind of gave it that landscapey feel by having it stretch out over most of the painting. All right, here we go. Final mark making. So at this point, I had already sent them a photo before I came in and did a little bit more there. And they were happy with it. I was ecstatic that they were happy with it. And here, what I'm doing is I am checking the sides. And I want to make sure that, the paint goes all the way around the sides, because when it's hanging on the wall, I don't want you to see it from a side view and then see a little bit of paint missing right on the edge. So I'm coming in with my brush now, and the beauty of the way that I create art is that even if the color doesn't match up perfectly, it works because the rest of the painting is going to look that way as well. And there I did a pretty good job because it didn't take me too long to get in there and clean up the sides a bit. I'm using a variety of mark making tools. If you are interested, I've got a video that I'm going to link for you here that is about the mark making tools that I like to use and how they react to water. Very interesting video for folks who are just learning about mark making tools and how they can use them. So check out that video if you get a chance. Continuing with my mark making, I've got some crayons here. I think these are like Neocolor 2 crayons. And when we're done with this, I do varnish this as well. So I'm going to be showing you that, what I do to varnish it. And here I've come in with a paintbrush one more time, making myself crazy. Close to the end here. Finishing up this final mark making. And my mark making at the end is not super obvious. I'm using colors that I've already got in this painting. So in this case, neutrals with neutrals. And I'm going to sign this with a pencil at the end. I start with a pencil in this process, and then I like to finish it with signing it with a pencil. We're getting close to that. Drawing this middle section here so that I can do some mark making over it. Subtle mark making. If you're enjoying this video, I so appreciate it if you'd give me a thumbs up. That lets me know that you are liking this video, but also it really helps get the word out to other folks who might like this video as well. So you're not just helping me, but you are also helping get other folks get it into their feed so that they can see this video. So helping your fellow artists as well. All right, I am sharpening my pencil so that I can sign. And I like my signature to be subtle, so I chose this darker side so that it wasn't quite so obvious. And just when I thought I was done, nope, had to come in one more time. I'm putting down paint and I'm wiping it off with my hand. I'm just laughing at myself. It is completely dry and I am down on the floor. I am removing it from the stretchers. I'm going to include a link here so that you can see how to remove a slowed down version on how to remove gallery wrapped canvas. There's grooves in the back and you have to remove this rope. It's not a rope, but it's a plastic something. I don't know the name of it. And it takes a while, so I really sped up this part to get through it quickly, but I do have a video that fully explains how to do that. Here I am using a fixative that is for indoors because I didn't want to go outside and use my usual fixative spray varnish, which is a Krylon workable fixative. So I'm using this one instead, and it works great indoors. However, it doesn't always seal all of my marks, but I'm not too worried because I didn't use too many water-soluble marks in my final layer here. So I wasn't too concerned about it, but I did want to get a good layer of this down so that it would secure my other marks, especially my signature. And then here, I'm using thumbtacks just to get it to spread out properly before I varnish it. I had a handful of these. Drying it super quick here, making sure that that fixative spray was completely dry, especially on my signature there. And here are some close-up video pics for you. And I did slow this down, although I still feel like I'm going a little fast. But here you can get a better view of that depth of all those layers that are happening, the marks, that middle area. See there, I ended up adding some of that little bit of a lighter blue through there so that it wasn't quite so plain looking. Down here especially, lots of interesting things happening between mark making and drips and layers happening. I just love that part. And there's my signature there. Okay, and let's do a quick view. That's a large piece that I'm still working on, still sitting there just the way it is. Coming around here, my little seating area. I've got 2 tables back here that I like to work on and record as well. I've got another one up on that wall that I got to finish up. And I've got a storage area off to the left there. And back here, this is my wall so that I can look at it without all that noise around it, because you guys know that once I get a lot of painting going, I've got a lot of paint on that wall. Okay, I'm using a matte varnish, Liquitex matte varnish. I'm going to include a link down below to all of my favorite art supplies. And I just signed up with Amazon. So if you'd like to shop on Amazon, I've got all the links for you. And the brush that I'm using, I just got at the hardware store. It's a synthetic brush. It's one of those short brushes, works great. And I tend to leave it soaking in water with a little bit of Murphy's oil soap, and it's always soaking in water. Got my first layer done, and then I added another layer. Okay, there's the final piece, and here's a quick little reel that I had done on Instagram, having fun. There it is, restretched and in their home. Loving the way it looks. and I hope you do too. Let me know in the notes below if you love this neutral painting. Okay, folks, thank you again for joining me. You can subscribe here, watch some more videos, hit that thumbs up, and also hit the bell to be notified of future video releases. Super happy you were here with me today. Wishing you a wonderful and creative day. Take care.